When I Hide My Caste by Baburao Bagul, Part 2nd. And after this first day, every day that dawned as a mountain of grief that was forced to carry on my head, even as its weight crushed me to powder. Kashinath too was always been skewered. He picked up a fight every day. That meant many of the workers treated him with enmity. Even his smallest mistake were not tolerated, and his response to this ill treatment was to look upon everyone with suspicion. Almost helplessly, like a madman, he would make a war upon the wind. He began to carry a knife in his pocket. I could understand his helplessness and this rage, and it burned my heart. I did not want this son of poor parents to come to grief in this strange land, and so I would try to save him. I would try to keep the peace. I would meet him on the quiet and try to explain things to him. I was taking this much trouble because I did not want him to get so angry that he might stab someone and kill him. And I had to be very careful not to let other people see my sympathy for him. This cautiousness made me curse myself as a weak and timorous idiot, and simultaneously I began to treat everyone with the utmost care. Where I had once spoken with the freedom of the blowing wind, now I measure every word and consider its effect. Like a frightened rabbit, I tried to keep people at bay. I, who had once bathed in the crowded river of Mumbai's humanity, who had watched people as silently as butterfly so that I might know them better, was now forced to crouch, weeping in the cruel dark in order to conceal the secret of my caste. I would be forced to hold Ramcharan, who held me in high esteem, at arm's length. And though my behavior hurt him, he still did not abandon me. Every day he would come up to me at least 10 times. Every Sunday he would invite me to eat a meal with him. His invitation wholehearted, his insistence increasing to the point where he was almost in tears, and I turned him down each time with the same adamantine refusal that would set him off, and he would curse and swear at his brother. His devotion and love would set off explosions in the quiet of my own home. And so, holding my tongue and bearing the blows, I got through the days until it was payday. I wanted now nothing more than to quit, and so I put in a request for leave. Since I said I wanted to go and collect my certificates, Mata Prasad immediately approved it. Somehow Ramcharan got to hear of this, and like a poor beggar, he began to follow me about with one prayer on his lips: "Please come and eat my home on payday." And finally, worn down by his extreme insistence, I agreed. We got our pay. The question of whether to keep the job or give it up, a question that had brought was dead, reared its head again. The poverty of my home might have resuscitated it. I began to feel the need for a job, and so I grew uncomfortable. I lost myself in the attempt to make a decision by sitting in the dark of my room and thinking. I smoked cigarette after cigarette, but I could not bring myself to accept the disrespect that would follow any revelation of my caste. And even as I was plagued by these anxieties, Kashinath's voice came to my ear. "Master." "Yes, Kashinath, come in." The man who was willing to raise hell in the traditional wilderness of caste inequality could not bring himself to enter his caste fellow's home. He stood outside. "Come, come, I am also." The proud young man's shame at coming into the room of Caste brother left me disconcerted. The truth come to the tip of my tongue, but remembering the threat that Ranchod had made, I kept silent, and the tears that would not flow backward had to be snatched with the edge of my dhoti. Master, if you had not been there to save me from all these fights, to protect me even, I would have killed both those demons, that Ranchod and the poet Ramcharan. And then what would have happened to my aged parents and my wife? Master, I am terribly hot tempered by nature. My elder brother in law was evil. He would torment my sister every day. He would beat her. Watching her being beaten and harassed every day, I would be filled with such rage, and I would not be able to taste my food. When I was in my matric years, the torture increased. To get him sorted out, I joined the gang of hoodlums. I grew close to them and got him beaten up. He escaped death, for I meant him to die at my hands. And from that time, I dropped out school. Master, I am going to quit this job. I am going to Mumbai. I will take what work I can get. I will finish my SSC. I will go to college. I will become a lawyer. No, now I don't plan to die a worker. This life, this terrible life. As he said these words, shining tears fell from his eyes as Kashinath of sword sharp mind bared his soul and its stripe to me. I felt my heart fill too. Sakpal, I'm going to quit too. Staying here means a living death, a life screwed over by death. Let's live together. I also want to share my sorrows with you. Kashi, I am also a. I was about to ask his pardon and tell him the story of how I had hidden my caste when seeing Kashinath standing in the door near me, Ranchor, already enraged at the disrespect shown to him, said with an animal's thinking fearlessness, "What's going on here? Since you are thinking of going to Mumbai tomorrow, are you going to pollute my room with your presence today? Idiot, he is pulling your leg," I said to Kashinath. But Kashinath, driven mad by constant attacks, went for Ranchod. Ranchod returned hurriedly to his room, seeing the effect that the demon of casteism had had on Kashinath. The bottom dropped out of my heart. I rushed after him and caught hold him, and the aggression drained from his body. He dropped his entire weight on my shoulder and began to weep as a child might. And after a while, he took out a knife and vanished into the darkness. Frightened by this, I peered into darkness, knowing that I should locate and stop him, but I was rooted to the spot. I did not have the desire to turn on the lights nor to go and have dinner. This terrible glimpse of casteism had torn my heart to pieces. Ustad, it was Ramcharan, bounding up, a playful, happy as a summer breeze. Hearing his voice, Ranchod came out, more choices abuse for the heads. And when Ramcharan asked what the matter was, he told him with a suitably violent gesture what had happened and tried to lambast me. He began to cast doubt on my caste as well. This made Ramcharan angry with him. Ranchod began to accuse Ramcharan of false and baseless pride of his Brahmin birth. Ramcharan returned to compliment, accused Ranchod of boasting about the special qualities of Kshatriyas. And while they were fighting this battle, I went into the room and packed my trunk and my bedding and come out. I stood in front of Ranchod's door and gave his wife the rent and started walking away. At which point Ramcharan abandoned the argument and come up behind me and said somewhat angrily, I have invited you to eat with me. I was going to come and fetch you. You said you would come, and yet you are leaving without saying a word to me? I looked in his direction without a word and then lowering my head and walked into the darkness. Ustad, tell me what happened. Did Ranchod show you disrespect? Did he hit you? Tell me, just tell me. I will break his leg. I shook my head to indicate that nothing had happened, and his throat seized up. Standing where he was, he raised both his arms to the sky in irritation, and in a voice that was overwhelmed with emotion, he said, "How many times did I beg you not to associate with that untouchable? Why? Both of us are sons of the same soil, sons of the same language, the sky above him, the earth beneath him, they are the same as what's above and beneath me. You soar like an eagle, come down to earth. We are ordinary laborers here, which is why we are the artisan of the new, which is why we have a responsibility to life. Ustad, come to home with me. Ramcharan, forgive me. I have swallowed far too much poison today. I cannot absorb it into my system. So, not now. Do me a favor and walk with me. I have something important to tell you. I was about to tell him about hiding my caste. No, no, Guruji. Saraswati will be very offended. She has been cooking all day. No. Even as I said this, he turned and prepared to touch my feet. Seeing the depth of his devotion, I was humbled and said, "Let's go, buddy. For your love, I am prepared to face death. Let's go." As we stood quietly in front of his room, he cried out in great happiness, "Saraswati, come out and welcome our guest." Saraswati, who had been waiting for us, come out, her anklets tinkling. Over my protest, this fair, slender, black haired woman, bright red sindoor in her hair, clutched the end of her sari pallu in her hands and touched the feet of man who was lower than her husband, younger than he, of a less socially acceptable complexion. Then she left, and seeing the devotion of an Indian wife for her husband, started a storm in my head. Immediately afterwards, she come out with a bucket of hot water, a small bowl of oil, and a lump of soap. And with a great enthusiasm, Ramcharan said to me, "Sit there, have a bath. I will rub you down with oil." Somewhat shy, I said, "Bhabhi made a mistake when she touched my feet. Now I won't tolerate any of this." "What of that?" Saraswati asked from behind the door. "Our guest is as our God." "No, no, no. I am half dead already. Any more and I will be dead soon." She laughed. I washed my arms and legs and went in. Then it occurred to me that Ranchod might have added his own two bits to the story of my encounter with Kashinath, and that this might be the reason why Ramcharan wanted me to have a bath. As soon as that occurred to me, I said, "Shall we eat outside?" "No, you are the Guru of Brahmin," he said, taking my hand and drawing me into the house. "Come inside." "But I am not a Brahmin." "Never mind, you are my Guru." He sat me down on the low stool. Saraswati sat in front of us, fanning us in such a way as to ensure that we are both cooled by the breeze. Her service was a punishment to me. My discomfiture at having caved in to Ramcharan's insistence that I accept his hospitality was increasing. I was responsible for this, and I felt the burden as No one else in the world had ever felt it. While Saraswati ate, Ramcharan prepared a baitak outside for us. As soon as she arrived, he began declaiming his poems. To cover my discomfort, I kept up a steady stream of wavas as he read his love poetry. In order to make sure Saraswati was getting as much of it as she should, he would stop in between line and I would explain things to her. I was scared of her, but I was also trying to please her because I was so obliged to her. It was very late when Ramcharan went inside, completely happy. I do not know when my pain and discomfiture subsided, for all at once I fell asleep. What woke me up was a sudden rain of blows falling at me from every direction. Ramcharan's room was full of people. Among them were people who were abusing me, accusing me of concealing my caste. There were others who were cursing, reminding themselves of the proverb that a snake in the house was asking to be butchered. And so they were doing their best to live up to the maxim. Ramcharan had gone from utmost devotion to demoniacal behavior and was asking questions even as he hit me. He was enraged that his wife had served me, and this was fueling the fire of his anger which would not subside. I gave up all hope of living. Sorrow and helplessness made my tongue heavy. Ramcharan's monstrous behavior turned my inside to stone. And through it all, not a word come from my mouth, not a tear fell from my eyes. I feel where the blows took me. I took the punches as they come. I let the blow flow. And Saraswati, who had no idea how to confront men, was shouting from inside, "Let him go. It's not his fault. He refused to come here. It was we who forced him to come here. He has lost everything. Let him be, or I will throw myself over his body." As she was saying this, a commotion broke out outside. People began to run out. They were shouting to each other, "Hey, that dead gangster from Mumbai is attacking people with a knife. Run!" Saraswati raced out into the baitak, lightning swift, and whisked her husband in. She bolted the door and come and sat my side and began to wipe the blood from my head and face with the pallu of her sari. Her eyes were exceptionally alert. Her gentle hands caressed my wounds, slowly lessening the shame I was feeling. And then, like a storm, Kashinath was in the room, knife flashing, shouting, "Master, may you be blessed." His congratulations seemed like they might inflict fresh wounds, and seeing him, Saraswati jumped to her feet and went to stand with her back to the door, ready to defend her husband. "Out of my way!" shouted Kashinath, waving the knife at her. And so, in order to protect her and make sure no harm come to her husband, I got up my feet, ignoring the pain in my body, and said, "Kashinath, let's go." He obeyed, and as soon as he turned toward the baitak door, she raced lightning swift again, dropping the tears she had been holding back over my feet, and opened the inside door and went to Ramcharan. She was no longer afraid, and we could now leave the house. Everything had been stolen from me. Ramcharan had ripped up my certificates and thrown them away. My head was bowed, my walk uncertain. My heart was a city rich with a revolution, and Kashinath, with a naked knife in his hand, was roaring, ready to use it on all comers. When we got out the settlement, Kashinath said to me, Master, let's go to the police station. I said, No. Kashinath said, Why did you have to take those idiots beating? I replied, When was I beaten by them? It was Manu who thrashed me. Come, Kashinath,